Warning, the Dub Talk podcast contains language and content that may not be suitable for younger audiences. Listener discretion is advised. There will also be spoilers for various anime throughout the course of this episode. Please use caution in case we discuss a series that you haven't finished yet. Finally, the opinions expressed are those of the individual participants and may not reflect the Dub Talk podcast as a whole. Enjoy the show. Hello, one and all, and welcome to Dub Talk, the podcast where we talk about the latest and greatest in English dubs. My name is Stephanie, and because it has been over 2 years since we gave you a little chaos as a part of your day, strap yourselves in, kiddies, because it is the long-awaited return of the Steph and Megan filler episode.
Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da. It's like The Price is Right, except for we're the only winners and you're all here to suffer.
or we suffer and they win because they get to view us suffering.
I mean, this is not a suffering show, so I'm not too
Fair.
mad. This isn't like the time that this is not a Valentine's Day episode. That is a sufferfest.
That is a sufferfest where where the listener and viewer benefits and not the participant. Anyway. Yeah, because the last time you and I did an episode together, just the two of us, was Bungo and Alchemist.
God, and that wasn't a suffering show either. That show was fun. What are you talking about?
Well, I didn't say it was suffering, now did I? I'm just saying that was the last time you and I just did an episode together.
God, it's been so long.
It's been too fucking long. We're gonna fix that tonight. Alright, today we're gonna have a fun... Wow. Today I can't read. Today we are going to have a bit of fun with a deep cut show that probably 15% of folks have heard of. We've dug into the old Sentai Filmworks vault and have brought back with us the 2009 series from PA Works and director Masahiro Ando and written by Mario Kata. Yes, the Mario Kata. Canaan, or Canaan, according to the dub.
It's Canaan.
It's Canaan. If you've never heard of this series before, and again, I'm thinking only 15% of you have, here's a quick summary. Secrets from your past can kill you, even if you can't remember them. Photographer Maria Osawa has been in Shanghai less than a day, covering an anti-terrorist conference, when she's attacked by masked assassins. Rescue comes in the form of Canaan, a mysterious girl Maria once met before an experimental cure for a deadly bioweapon erased part of her memory. A soldier for hire, Canaan's formidable martial arts skills are augmented with the gift of synesthesia, seeing emotions as colors, and her presence in Shanghai is no coincidence. She's hunting a former comrade who brutally betrayed her, and the path leads to the conference and the lethal Uwa virus, which mutates a few survivors, giving them strange abilities. Thrown together, the two women must face an army of terrorists and monster assassins while hunting their enemy, the assassin Canaan once called her sister. Some of the stuff in that summary is not even brought up in the show, actually.
Oh, no. So here's the fun thing I learned about while watching this show, because I needed to keep Wikipedia up. One, to tell me what the fuck was actually going on, because let me tell you, this show makes no goddamn sense.
Yep.
And two, is that, surprisingly, as I learned, this is actually based off a visual novel.
Yeah, it's based off of a scenario from a visual novel. It's 428 Shibuya Scramble, right?
Yes. It's not it's based off of a character from a, after-game side story, from what I've been told. Because I've actually talked to a good friend of mine, shout out to my buddy Impy, who was I was saying that I had watched it. And, I was talking, I had said to them, Canaan sure was a show of all time. Which is it's not bad, it's not good, it just kind of exists. Yeah. And they were like, it was kind of bizarre and in the context of where it came from. So basically, Canaan, the character that is the one that we actually follow in the show, doesn't ever actually appear in the main story of 428 Shibuya Scramble.
Yeah, it's an extra story that gets unlocked after the true ending, I think I read, right?
It's after that was written by Nasu. And if you don't know who Nasu is, he's the guy who made Fate Stay Night.
Oh! Ah! Okay. Yep. Alright.
So, him, Kinoko Nasu, and Takeuchi, who are, who they wrote and provided the character designs for it, they did that for this game, who was done by Chunsoft, who, if you don't know who Chunsoft is, they are now known as Spike Chunsoft.
Yep.
And if you don't know who Spike Chunsoft is, to give you some of their games that they had worked on, I'm gonna kind of do some stuff that I think a lot of people might actually kind of know. They did the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team and Red Rescue Team, Explorers of Time and Darkness. Eventually, in 2008, they would do Shibuya Scramble, but they worked in a lot of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeons. And then, that was when they were Chunsoft.
Right.
So when they become Spike Chunsoft, I think you might know some of their games a little bit better. Conception, Danganronpa.
Yep.
The 999 game, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors.
The Somnium Files, right?
I'm getting there. Yeah. Zero Time Dilemma. Danganronpa V3. Zenkai Zero. And of course, everyone's favorite game about God's horniest detective, AI, the Somnium Files.
Kaname Date.
Listen, I have never played that game, but I too am unfortunately into Kaname Date, the world's stinkiest, horniest detective. Which I technically
Date is the best.
Except for I can't technically call him stinky because according to the director of the game, he does shower.
Fuck.
I'm so mad that Kataro Ishikochi has said that Kaname Date fucking showers on the regular and fucks. Because, listen, Kaname Date deserves to have his balls in, like, a chastity belt sometimes.
Yes. He does.
We're losing the plot completely, but...
Yes, we are.
But yeah, this is two bitches who are into Kaname Date. But here's the other really fun thing about 428 Shibuya Scramble. Is that 428 Shibuya Scramble came out in 2008 and Canaan would come out in 2009.
Yep.
And the Blu-ray of it would come out dubbed in America in 2010. So 2 fun facts about Shibuya Scramble. 1, it is one of the few games that has ever gotten a perfect score by Famitsu. And Famitsu is like a big time deal in Japan.
Wow, okay.
Like, Famitsu is like, scoring in Famitsu is very big.
Damn.
There are only 29 games that have ever gotten a perfect score.
And this is one of them.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. The only things that have ever the most recent game to essentially get a perfect score in Famitsu is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth from the Yakuza series.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give you the games that have ever gotten a perfect score very quickly are Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda, Soul Calibur, Vagrant Story, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Nintendogs, Final Fantasy XII, Super Smash Bros. Nintendogs.
What the fuck?
Final Fantasy XII, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Metal Gear Solid 4, Gun to the Patriot, 428 Shibuya Scramble, which is the one that's important today, and it is the first and only visual novel that has ever gotten a perfect score.
Got it, okay.
Dragon Quest IX, Sentinels of the Starry Sky, Monster Hunter Tribe, Bayonetta, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Metal Gear Solid, Peace Waker, Pokemon Black and White, Skyward Sword, Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, Final Fantasy XIII 2, Kid Icarus Uprising, Yakuza 5, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle, Grand Theft Auto 5, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Dragon Quest IX, Echoes of an Elusive Age, Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Street Fighter 6, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Huh.
I'm still stuck on Nintendo and how the fuck did that happen.
However, I am very mad looking at the near perfect scores of a 39 that fucking Okami is there, and Okami is one of the best games of all time.
Oh man. Anyway. We're here today to talk about girls with guns.
Artistic license synesthesia.
War, lesbians, and necrophilia.
And the world's worst mutation. Oh, Union.
Oh, Union. Poor Union. Anyway, now that we've rambled and divulged for like 15 minutes, as always, we're going to be discussing the dub from the beginning to end, giving our thoughts and opinions on the casting, directing, writing, and the overall series. Are we ready to get started with this insanity?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we get started with the ADR director and the scriptwriter? So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Sentai Filmworks dub.
When I saw who directed this, I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
And I completely forgot who directed this dub and also co-wrote this dub. So we have ADR director and we have 2 scriptwriters. Serving as double duty for ADR director and scriptwriter is the one, the only, Stephen Foster. Who has pulled double duty for other shows, and I actually doubled the credits that I normally do. Who's done double duty as director and writer on series such as Angel Beats, Inu X Boku's Secret Service, Kids on the Slope, Red Garden, Penguin Drum, and Ghost Stories.
One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong.
And as for our other scriptwriter, we have Javier Lopez. The only other things he's written for is some episodes of Ghost Stories, Golgo 13, and Night Raid 1931. He's primarily been known as a translator or translation work over at the ADV Film / Sentai Filmworks. So, how do we start this conversation?
This could be worse.
It could be worse. It could be much worse.
like, let's all be real.
Mm-hmm.
This could have been a Penguin Drum situation.
Yep.
Where Stephen Foster just did not give a shit about the show. And left halfway through and just kept recasting people.
Yep. But, it looks like he actually gave a shit this time around.
The only complaint that I have is that it is very clear that he added a lot of swearing in the show, and that wasn't always needed.
It wasn't always needed, but I will say this. There are characters who got to say fuck.
And that was worth it, but still.
No, I'm not saying it was worth it. I'm saying, like, it at least, for the most part, felt appropriate in certain spots to drop an F-bomb.
Fair.
Like, the amount of times someone said shit could have been dialed back a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, with anyone who said fuck, for the most part, it had an impact that I think worked in its favor. My major complaint, I think, with the directing on it is that there are some performances that seem kind of bland and flat at points.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the bigger issues on the directing front. I don't think it's the fault of the actors, honestly. And it's certainly not entirely the fault of the director, because we're going to get to another fun aspect of the show in a hot second, and you already know what it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some of the characters, how they're written, aren't exactly really, like, outstanding or very stand out anyway. Save for, like, maybe one or two.
Mm-hmm.
And the directing kind of didn't do it any favors or didn't really elevate it at all, or at least try to give more to these characters. And I think that kind of ended up being a detriment overall on the directing side. But I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, like no offense, the show's story is kind of a mess.
It is. That's problem number one. The show itself, its story is a bit of a mess. Like you were saying, you had to have the wiki up so you could follow along as best as you can. Because have you seen this show?
I had not seen the show before.
You haven't seen the show?
I went in completely blind.
Okay, I've seen this show a couple times, but the last time I saw it was like easily over a decade ago. So it's been years since I've seen this show. That being said, like, it's not... Again, it could be worse. The writing, I think, was fine, and it was serviceable for what it needed. But I do partially agree with you that some of the swearing could have been dialed down just a touch. But at least with some of the more hard-hitting curse words, like F-bombs, those at least, for the most part, were in the right spot for, like, the best impact possible, I feel like. Yeah. I think... We didn't bring up the actual staff members on the most egregious part of this, though.
I don't think it's fair to, because...
No, it's not. I mean, who knows what could have happened. So, I think the biggest issue on the production side of this is some of the mixing.
Yeah, and this is something that I talked about, too, with some people. And they actually said their copies did not have mixing issues, and that the dub streaming when it was streaming, because here's the thing, unfortunately this show is no longer streaming on High Dive and hasn't been picked up anywhere else.
Correct.
So we watch these from our own Blu-ray copies.
Yes.
So, that being said, like, the mixing on my copy was absolutely atrocious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was so difficult at times for me to watch and pay attention to the performances because of the balance between the background noises and the music and then the actual voice acting. That was the issue. And especially when you have either quiet moments or very soft-spoken characters, like Hako, for instance, or Yuri, Kanan's handler. Those can be, like, so fucking quiet that you almost can't hear anything. Especially if you have, like, the high-octane action sequences and the music to match that is kind of drowning it out. So, it kind of made it a bit more difficult. And so, I mean, I wish it was still available for streaming so I could, like, see the comparison on it. And, like, because what you heard is true. Yeah. And the mixing on the streaming version is a lot better than the home video version.
Which could have been an authoring issue, which even then, shame on you, Sentai, for not picking that up in QC.
Right, because early on, when I was watching it the other night, you and I had a similar issue also where I only had it happen the one time, and I know you said you had it a couple times, where there were parts when we were watching an episode, and all of a sudden, the audio just cut out.
Yeah, or the video would start skipping. I have to ask you one thing. Mm-hmm. At the very end of the show, when Maria is in the hospital, did all of a sudden your copy's, like, vocal track just drop completely, almost to, like, a whisper?
I just watched the last episode like half an hour ago. You think I'd remember already? Oh man, this show is a little bit forgettable. No, I mean, it still seemed rather hushed, but obviously I had to turn the volume up. Yeah. For the whole fucking thing because of the balance issue between, like, the music and background and the voice acting. So it's for me, it seemed like how it was normally. But I don't know that. So it seemed more hushed to you at that point?
Oh, it just completely, like, cut out.
Interesting. That's weird.
It almost it went, like, super hushed to the point where I was, like, straining to hear it. And I'm sad because, like, I'm always of a thing of, like, listen, not every show is going to be, like, your favorite show or is going to be very good. But it should at least be, from a production standpoint, treated like it is someone's favorite show. Right. So that's why it's a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting too because when the audio cutout issue happened, I asked Megan, because she mentioned she had the issue too, I asked her, like, which version of the Blu-ray she had, because Sentai has been doing, like, re-releasing with, like, new SKUs and things like that, and she has the most recent release, and I have an older version.
I believe I have the most recent release.
Yeah, I have an older version of the... I know I definitely have an older version of the release, 100%. It might very well be the version that when Sentai dropped DVDs and switched over to Blu-ray, it might actually be that version is the one I have years ago. But because you bought yours...
like, sometime earlier this year.
Yeah, either earlier this year or late last year when we were on and off talking about doing this episode.
I think it was earlier this year.
Yeah, so it must have been the at least the latest one, because your cover is different than mine. So it's very weird. Like, and it makes me sad, because I'll admit, when I was in college, and this actually, weirdly enough, was one of the first shows that I reviewed as an anime reviewer on my blog.
Oh,
ironically enough. I don't think this was the first, but it was one of them. And I had at least a moderate amount of enjoyment of it. I thought it was pretty good. But going back to it, and especially, like, having these issues with the final product is kind of disheartening. And clearly, in the years since this has come out, nothing has been done to fix it. Obviously this show is not streaming anymore, so clearly they're not investing anything else into this one. They're probably just gonna let the rights expire, honestly, at this stage for this show, which is a little sad.
Come on, Discotheque!
Discotheque, help bring the rescue mobile in and fix the QC problems.
The ambulance, please.
Please fix the QC problems. But yeah, it is disheartening that there's a lot of, like, production issues and QC issues that are easy to fix, that were never addressed, or have never been addressed since this show came out, probably over a decade ago at this stage. But in terms of going back to kind of the directing and writing, I think, for the most part, I think it's fine. I think it's serviceable given what the show is. Mm-hmm. The only issues more I have is on the production QC end, and then just
some of the acting is
some of the acting and some of the direction for that is not amazing.
It's very, this is fine.
Yeah, it's very, this is fine.
I think that's what I can say about a lot of the show, is the dub of the show is it's alright.
Mm-hmm. It's alright. It's not spectacular, but it's fine. It's serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we move on to characters?
No, not really. I'm ready to go into character talk. Granted, I don't know if the first set of characters I'll have a ton to say about, so...
That's why I put them lower on the list, because they're very, very much secondary, if anything.
Yeah.
So, the good thing about Canaan is that it's a relatively small cast, which is great. So we have, 4 groups total, with the last 2 sets being pairs. So let's start with our first set of characters. We have a trio. These are very much the secondary characters that have some amount of influence, but not a ton of influence on the story. So we have Cummings. Cummings is part of the terrorist organization Snake, so he works with Elfard and Liang Chi. And he's a masochistic fuck who enjoys pain.
Welcome back, Kaname Date.
Welcome back, Kaname Date. Yep. All for his love of Liang Chi, who at the end becomes a goddamn Buddhist monk.
Yep.
Yep. Because why not? We have Yuri Natsuma, I forgot which organization she's part of, but she's effectively Canaan's handler.
Yeah, pretty much.
For all intents and purposes. But she does have... You do learn she does have a bit more involvement with the overarching stuff with the Ghost Village and the Ua virus and all this other stuff. But primarily she's Canaan's handler. And then we have Siam. Siam effectively is the one who raised both Canaan and Alphard to be these little child soldiers that they are. But by the time we start the series, he's dead because Alphard killed him. But he seems to be haunting both of them in his own way. Voicing these three characters, I'm going to start with Siam. Siam is voiced by Andrew Love, who has voiced characters such as Akio Furukawa in Clannad, Helk in the series Helk, and Yohei Sakaguchi in Run with the Wind. Yuri Natsuma, I'm going to mispronounce the first name and I apologize, Keitha Coker, who has voiced characters such as Yuko Inada in Angelic Lair, Dr. Reika Otori in Ghost Hound, and Alice Malvin in Pumpkin Scissors. And finally, Cummings is voiced by Andy McAvin, who has voiced characters such as Akira Maeda in Cromartie High School, Richard Mardukas in Full Metal Panic, and Joji Futagami in Razapon. So.
Fun times.
Mm-hmm. I think the only character that really has any significance in this show is Andrew Love.
Yeah, I do want to give Andy and Katha? I think it's Keitha.
I think it's
their due. I think Keitha does a good job of being kind of that mysterious, kind of sexy voice, but also being very, hey, it's... Sorry, this is going to make no sense to you. It's Patrick Seitz in Armor Core 6.
You're right, it doesn't make sense.
You've not spoken to Getter for long enough. That is a game that I played, but essentially in that game, Patrick Seitz plays your, handler, and he's got a mission for you, 621. Mm-hmm. And essentially, I have always joked that my character is basically, an obnoxious teenage girl who just wants to hang out with, Chris Hackney's character. And
gotcha.
But yeah, so if you ever want Patrick Seitz to, speak to you like your dog, play Armor Core.
Oh god, okay.
But yeah, she has very much that energy. She has some stuff with Santana, who we'll get to in a little bit.
Yep.
But unfortunately, Keitha's performance kind of falls in the background, and Andy McGavin, Cummings is a character that I wish would have died. Sorry, I thought he got out too easy.
Yeah, no.
I will say that the one scene that really matters with him and is when Liang Qi breaks down. I thought Andy did a really good job, but
yes,
he was far more overshadowed by Liang Qi's actress.
Oh, 100%.
So sorry, dude. You were pretty good, but I genuinely don't remember things. And I will say the way that he has a very soft fondness of at the end where he picks up the little ball.
The little seed,
and he's just some fond attachments from a former life. I thought was good. And then Andrew Love pulling the Andrew Love out on Siam. I like that distant but cold fatherly kind of voice that he gives him. And just in episode 11 where he's calling out Canaan for relying on her synesthesia and avoiding the truth of the world, I thought was very moving. I genuinely liked when he's telling Alphard that he's never going to be as good because she doesn't have superpowers.
Yeah.
I like the performance a lot. I kind of wish that it was, again, more in the series. Part of me kind of wishes that we would have focused more on that than some of the other stuff, because I found that and the stuff with Liang Qi a little bit more, some of the little bit more moving parts. We're actually going to, in the next section, get into the part of the series that actually, made me really emotional, but...
Oh, boy. Oh, Hako. No, I'm probably gonna agree with you on a lot of fronts. There's not a lot to really talk about with these three. Keitha as Yuri is, again, very mature, but, very mature, very kept together, and you definitely can tell she's holding a lot of cards to her chest, and she's not showing her hand so easily. And that's still even true even in the latter parts of the series when they go to the factory and she ends up magically there just to fuck with shit. And I do like Keita's performance of Yuri. I do like it. It is one of the more soft-spoken performances, though, which made it a bit more difficult given the mixing issues. Andy McAvin, Jesus Christ. I didn't understand. This is not a fault to Andy. I didn't quite understand the role of Cummings. And I agree he should have died a long-ass time ago and he got out too easily. I thought after everything with Liang Qi, he ended up fucking dead in the factory, but somehow he survived and became a Buddhist monk. I forgot about that part. But Andy, I think considering everything that Cummings had and did as a character, I think Andy McAvin did pretty well what he had. But you can easily tell with Cummings, and the highlight definitely is the end part with Liang Qi. But I think some of my other favorite moments is when Liang Qi shoots at him with the BB gun, and he just sits there and he takes it, and he's loving it, because he's a fucking masochist like that. He's like, I'm like, oh Jesus, he's one of these guys. Okay. And then Andrew Love is Siam. So Siam is another one of the quiet roles and performances in the show that had issues with the mixing portion. But Andrew Love, it's vastly different than what I've come to associate Andrew doing for performances. Because Andrew Love, you can hear him as usually like these brash, cocky sons of bitches, these loud characters, these gruff, like super gruff, like confident bastards. And then you have Siam, who, while he is gruff and like mature, I think you described it best, is very cold and distant. And that's a side of Andrew as an actor you don't really see too often. And that's something I very much can appreciate. So I do appreciate that performance. I think the highlight for him is absolutely, you're right, the train at the end of the show, where he's talking to Canaan. And it's like he's one of these ghosts that's haunting her. And it's very, very poignant, where he's like, you need to see the world without using your powers and see it for what it is. And yeah, no, Andrew Love, I think, was phenomenal in the role, honestly. Is there anything else, or do we want to move? That section was super short, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I really don't, actually.
Okay. Well, the next section we probably have quite a bit more.
Yes!
Yay! All right, so let's move on to our next section. These characters are also secondary characters, but they kind of have a lot more to do throughout the course of the show. We have, ironically enough, one of the only characters that crosses over from the visual novel. Minoru Minokawa. He is a freelance reporter for a gossip mag who is in Shanghai with Maria on assignment, and he gets his ass caught up in all of this shit. And he's trying to find that big scoop to get him out of the gossip magazine. Then you have Santana and Hako. Santana owns this Japanese bar, Japanese-made cafe bar place in Shanghai. Hako is one of the waitresses there, but both of them clearly have something more going on to them than what you believe. And then we have Yunyun. Yunyun has a lot of jobs. She works at restaurants. She delivers shit. She does a lot of things. And of course, she ends up as more part of the story as what you would expect. We'll probably get more into the actual stories of these as we go on. So, as Yunyun, we have Serena Vargas, who has voiced characters like Michiru in Air, Asfi Al Andromeda in Danmachi, and Marie Claire in Tokyo Majin. As Hako, we have Emily Neves, who has voiced characters such as Chelsea in Akame ga Kill, Saki Watanabe in From the New World, and Inga in Ungo. As Santana, we have Loraldo Anzaldúa, who has voiced characters such as Noda in Angel Beats, Ryo Kurokiba in Food Wars, and Kei Tsukishima in Haikyuu.
I knew he was in Haikyuu!
Yep.
I couldn't remember which one of them little fuckers he was.
Surprise, bitch! And then
Tsukishima.
and as Minoru Rikawa, we have David Matranga, who has voiced characters such as Daon de Beaumont in Le Chevalier Daon, Takumi Usui in Maid-sama, and for you, Megan, Kojak the Lojack, aka Kojaku in Dramatical Murder.
Hell, I got him to sign my copy, no fear.
Hell yeah.
I did not call him Kojak the Lojack, though.
No, good. No, I tried to stick with, because I know David and Emily, they do... And Andrew Love, to an extent. They do some stuff with the Dallas pool sometimes, but I tried to like stick to as much with the Houston stuff as possible.
Yeah,
anyway.
Just Kojak I forgot about fucking Kojak the Lojack.
This is what happens when Stephanie is listening to old episodes while at work. I listened to the Dramatical Murder one like a couple months back, and I'm like, I forgot about Kojak the Lojack.
We have been doing this for almost, at the time of this recording, almost 10 years, so the amount of really cursed shit I have said that has been recorded would make every one of my white women ancestors cry. There are not enough pearls to clutch in the afterlife.
Oh man, all of the cursed shit. Anyway, alright. Where do we want to start this conversation?
I'll start it off with Dave, because he's kind of like... He's a big part of the story, but also for a while he's not a big part of the story.
Yeah, so, ironically enough, because his character is one of one of the four
characters that come back from the game.
The game. Another one is Maria's dad.
And Maria herself.
Right, well, in terms of the actual, of the visual novel, Minoru and Maria's dad are two of the main characters from the visual novel. Yeah,
because Maria was kidnapped in the visual novel.
Point still stands.
She's still a fucking character.
Point still stands. Anyway, David Matranga.
Yeah, he is, so here's the thing, too, about it. So, 428 Shibuya Scramble has never been dubbed.
Right.
So, Dave is the official voice of Minoru in all of the Scramble-verse.
Really?
Yeah, they never dubbed it. They never dubbed it. It got brought over, like... Here's the other funny thing about this, too. So, I don't know if I mentioned it in the whole, like, segment where we were, like, talking about 428 Shibuya Scramble. Mm-hmm. 1, the game is never dubbed. And 2, the game didn't come out in the US until, like... 10 years after the game was done, and about 8 years after the dub was done.
Yeah.
So, for at all point, and this is not something new that was of that time period.
Right.
So essentially, Dave is the only person who's ever portrayed this character, and I think Dave does a good job. I think it is the thing is, like, it's gonna sound me that I'm saying, hey, this is just Dave doing what Dave Matonga does. He does a good job of balancing the drama and the comedy aspect of this, because this is a Chunsoft / Nasu / Mario Kata thing. The show has very, very, very weird dry humor and moments that'll make you go, what the fuck?
She had a nice ass!
A+ delivery, David.
A+ delivery.
But just also, I like that in the end, Minoru, his delivery of, man, I should get into another job.
Yeah.
Minoru is a good guy. He's a little weird, but he's a good guy. But my thing is this. I have watched Dave Matranga and so much shit these days.
Yep.
That, like, I've seen what, like, Dave Matranga going, like, above and beyond looks like. Hello, I've watched My Hero Academia.
Right.
But I've also watched him in, like, things like Buddy Daddies and stuff where I find the material, and that's also probably because the material is much stronger than this.
Right.
That I don't have a lot to say other than good job, Dave guy.
Good job, Dave guy. I love that. No, I have to agree. Like, Minoru very quiet and soft-spoken, but I think Minoru can be another character that has the mixing problem on the home video set. But I think the comedic moments for Minoru, that do happen, you could tell David had fun with it. Again, she had a nice ass. Like, it was good. And you can tell Minoru, you can kind of say, is, in a way, the audience surrogate. Because Minoru is wanting to figure out what the fuck is going on in this.
Me too, Minoru.
Me too, Minoru. So you could kind of see Minoru, Minarikawa, as your audience surrogate in this situation. To an extent, because he's not there like 100% of the time. He's probably there 75, if that. But in terms of some of the background information, he's the one who kind of helps as much as possible, because Lord knows this story is convoluted. He tries as much as possible to bring everything together so that way both hit not only himself, but the audience can understand it. And that's an aspect that I think David pulled off very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I feel like we should talk about Union next. Because I feel like Loraldo and Emily we have to save last.
Yeah, so Union is in fact the best character in the show.
I love Union.
and okay, before I talk about Serena's performance, we have to talk about it. How Union lost the mutant lottery.
Okay. So I'm gonna try and keep this as short context as possible. Union and Hako are from this ghost village that we brought up a couple times. It's a ghost village because it was a mission to like try and bring this antivirus in. It happened to bring the UA virus, and it caused mutations with some folks, and they are now called Borners. Union and Hako are two of them. So basically, you live because the UA virus is supposed to kill you, but you have some sort of power or some sort of mutation.
Except for Union didn't get a power.
Union got 2 appendixes.
Which...
That's her special power.
Imagine, okay, have you seen Static Shock? Did you ever watch the Static Shock cartoon as a kid?
Yes.
Okay, imagine going into that night where, like, all the gas blows over and it gives all the kids, like, fucking powers and shit, and you walk out with double appendixes. Like, the appendix, the most useless organ in our body, aside from some people's brains.
Oh my god.
Like, if it explodes, it will kill us. Fast. She's got 2 bombs inside of her. It's like you go
double fucked.
It's like you go into you go into like Borners Anonymous, and it's like, hi, I'm Joe Blow, and when I got the fucking UVA virus, I can now hear like the girl in Encanto, except for it's gonna make me deaf in 5 years. What'd you get? I got 2 appendixes. Shit sucks, bro. Like, didn't get any cool powers. She's not, like, mutating out of control. Bitch just got 2 fucking appendixes.
Yep.
In which, again, if one of them explodes,
you're fucked.
And now she's got 2 of them. It's like filling Patrick and I with a bunch of meat, sticking us in a hotel room and waiting for the farts to go off.
Oh my god!
It's not gonna be pleasant for anybody. Let alone the poor fucker who's in the bed next to us. I have seen a lot of characters get, like, shitty superpowers, but Union's taken the cake with the double appendixes. It's like having the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago White Sox inside of your body at the same time, and I don't mean the players in your hoo-ha.
Oh god.
No one should ever be made to suffer through 1 fucking appendix like we all have to do in life. But 2?
Oh my god.
Good god. Union, you deserve a government stipend for your pain and suffering of having not only to appendixes, but being experimented on by the CDC, which is a real thing that has happened in the United States multiple times. I shouldn't have to explain that to anime weebs, but for some reason a bunch of you weebs believe that real-life politics do not influence the anime that you watch. That's dumb, just like sticking to appendixes in a poor girl. Anyway, Serena Varghese is doing the best that she goddamn can in this show. And, like, I want to say that she's a lot of fun as Union. There are times where I think she is pushed to screech a little too much.
Yeah.
But when she is calmed down and stuff, she's a lot of fun. And Union's character is very much the comic relief character in all of this.
100%.
I mean, for God's sakes, they put 2 goddamn appendixes in her.
She also tends to shove, like, 2 melons or
dumplings
into her shirt a couple times, just to show that she has...
You're ruining the product!
Union, that's not how you sell things. But I thought I could attract more customers this way. No, Union.
Imagine if her mutation would have just been, like, 4 titties, then she really could have sold some shit.
Then she would have been set for life instead of living on a goddamn houseboat.
I mean, for God's sake, she would have made the Total Recall lady look like a pussy. I think Serena does as good of a job as she can with this character. Again, I think that Foster maybe pushed her into a bit of a too much high screen role. And this is something that I've noticed has kind of unfortunately carried over into some Sentai dubs that he's not even involved in anymore. Because, he doesn't work there anymore and is not, like, actively in the industry.
Right.
But I like the performance and I like the character. I think it's a lot of fun. Again, this might be just on the show's case, but unfortunately, like an appendix, I don't think Union was actually needed for the narrative.
No, not really, but, like, at the same time, she kind of helps bring together some of the context of the show. Because Lord knows Hako can't. And I think 100% you're right. She's definitely... Union is more of a comedic relief type of character. And in a depressing war terrorism show like this, you kind of need a little bit of relief. And I think Serena plays that role very, very well. I agree with you that some of the screeching and the yelling could have been brought down a touch. But Union is a higher energy character compared to anybody else. I think the only one that comes close might be Liang Chi, but that's for a completely different fucking reason.
Maybe Maria sometimes.
But again, completely different reasons why. But I think I did like Serena. She's adorable, she's fun, she has this high energy to her. Again, the screeching could have been dialed back just a touch. But overall, I think she was perfectly fine. Oh boy. Loraldo and Emily.
They hit me a lot.
This one hurt.
Yeah, I would actually say that for a lot of the things in it, I actually wasn't the super biggest fan of Lorenzo's performance. Mm-hmm. I felt like a lot of times it was very flat.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially compared to Dave.
Right.
So, like, as like, of all the male actors in the show, Dave Matonga is probably by far the best. The second best is a character that we're not talking about, and that is definitely Rob Mungle, the cab driver.
He's one of my favorites. It's great.
Rob Mungle, the cab driver.
I forgot how much of a delight Rob Mungle is as the taxi driver.
Him and I think that's Lucy Christian is the idol girl.
Yes.
That he loves.
Yes.
But Loraldo nails it when Santana gets killed by Hako's voice. Yes. Because Hako doesn't speak because her mutation fucked her voice. Mm-hmm. And goddamn did Emily Neves, when Hako spoke, you listened. Yes. That scene where she blows up the little boy's head.
Oh, yep.
Pop goes the child.
Pop goes his head.
By the way, I will say that's probably one of my favorite transition cuts is from a director's standpoint in the anime is when it cuts to her with the flecks of
blood in the mug,
on.
Yep.
Yeah, and the reflection of her on the mug.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you, Ando. You're a good director. I like a lot of stuff that the guy who directed the show does.
I forgot what else he's directed.
I'll pull that up while I'm talking.
I got it. You can keep talking.
Yeah, so I gotta talk about it. I gotta talk about Santana's death scene.
Yeah.
That is the best part of Loraldo's performance. Just him saying, like, say it louder, like how much
say it again, like, say that you love me. Yep.
And just, you can hear the tension in Emily's voice, knowing the more she says it, the more it's gonna kill her.
Yeah.
Him. And then it does eventually, and that was Lian Q's big plan, and she tricked her, and then Lian Q uses that to hurt Canaan.
Yep.
But also, when Minoru, I think, was it Canaan or Minoru who finds them in bed together? It's Canaan.
It's Canaan.
Alright, let's talk about Hako's necrophilia.
Oh boy.
Like, Hako drags Santana's corpse to her room and is naked in bed over him. Like, kissing him. It is genuinely an uncomfortable scene.
Yeah.
And then they get crushed to death, but Emily's voice in that performance, in that moment, is still really good. Like, Emily Neves is such a talented actress.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people, like, highlight how talented she is enough. And if they do, it's a lot more of her, like, writing and comedy aspect stuff.
No, yeah. She's a phenomenal dramatic actress, too.
And I wish that they put her in more dramatic stuff, even though I know she's been in a lot of dramatic stuff. It's still, like...
No, 100%. I wish, like, people got to, like, to not only see, but, like, appreciate what she does as a dramatic actress, too.
Like, obviously she's been in, like, Clannad and stuff, but, like, obviously Eri in My Hero, a lot of people think of, but that's her doing, like, the child voice.
Right. Compared to Hako, who's an adult. Side note, I found at least two other shows that Ando has directed that come to mind for me. O Maidens and Snow White with the red hair.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I'm gonna say it, and this is probably gonna shock a lot of people, because as we all know, I have an absolutely fucking hatred of this series. Mm-hmm. I think I'm not gonna bash anybody who's in the cast of the show. I just personally think the series is deplorable and terrible, but, like, if you're okay with the content of it, I've been told a lot of the dub of Mushoku Tensei is very good, and she's very good in that.
Oh, yeah.
I just absolutely hate that show exists.
Yeah, I haven't touched that, like, at all, and I don't think I ever wanna... I don't think it's gonna be one that's for me, is the issue.
Yeah.
I know it's a thing for other people, it's not for me. Oh god, I forgot that Emily Neves was the lead in fucking Cross-Ange.
I purged that show from my memory.
I purged it until just now.
I mean, she's also Aoi in Kakuryou, so.
Oh, that's true. She is.
Yeah, so I liked Emily a lot in this. I genuinely got a little misty-eyed when Hako and Santana say they love each other. Like, I think I texted you, was like, that shit hits hard.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, okay. So... in terms of Loraldo and Emily, in terms of the performance as a duo and the dynamic, I think this is probably among the strongest dynamics of the show. Because while I do kind of agree with you that Loraldo kind of tends to be flat, I found that more of an issue during the beginning of the show. But as the show progressed, and then as we get to the high point of his character, we also learn his fucking deal, because he was a CIA operative, I think, that defected after the whole issue with the Ghost Village.
Yes.
And the factory. So once we start, like, getting to that point and we learn more about him, I think that's the point where Loraldo gets to kind of fully embrace the character, and he gets to perform all of the nuances for it. And then, of course, we have the high point being his death at the hands of Hako, where all he wants, he's like, it's okay, don't worry about me, it's too late for me, there's nothing you can do, all I want to know is that if you love me, then tell me you love me. Because he does love her. He really loves her unconditionally, but he has this sense of guilt that he, because of his involvement with the whole stuff with the village, with the Uwa virus, he has a sense of guilt, and he wants to atone for it and to a point so that way Hako can forgive him, and then they can like actually like be together. It's like his own little internal struggle as we learn. So I think some of the mystery aspects of his character and what his deal is in the beginning kind of made things a little flat. But as we progress in the show and we learn his deal, we get to have more time with him, and we find out everything else, he grows more into the role. Emily as Hako breaks my heart, because for the most part, this is a fairly easy role to portray on paper, right? You don't get to say much. You make little noises of like breaths or like cries or things like that, and then you have a few lines here and there. That's easy on paper, right? In practice with this character, good sweet fucking lord. Because Hako is probably one of the most tormented characters of the show. And Emily nails every beat, every moment of that character. Again, for me, it's a crying shame that the mixing on the home video release was not great, because this is the biggest offender of this problem, is Hako. And it sucks, because Hako as a character, you want to be able to understand and hear her little moments as best as possible. And if the mixing is not great, it's 10 times more difficult. But what Emily is able to do with Hako as a character is just gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. Like you said, the moment when she finds out about her powers and she accidentally blows a little kid's head off. The moment where she kills Santana by mistake. Even the moment where she is having sex with his dead fucking corpse. Her character is so heartbreaking, and Emily just, I feel like, delivers on all aspects of it throughout the course of the show, and I adore it so much. I think it's one of my favorite performances of the show, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, is there anything else we want to talk about with these 4 characters?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Let's talk about our villains. Effectively our 2 villains of the show. Our lead villain and her crazy sister, as she refers to herself as her sister.
Air quote sisters, but let's be real, that's sisters in the Alabama sense.
Yeah. We have Alphard Elshea, who is our main antagonist of the show, and then we have Liang Chi, who is, I would say, our secondary antagonist. Both of them are part of the organization Snake. Alphard is the leader of Snake, as far as we know of. Liang Chi is someone who works directly under her. And Liang Chi is obsessed with Alphard, wanting her love and attention, and gets jealous if Alphard diverts her attentions to Canaan. So much so that Liang Chi is just like, fuck you, I'm gonna fuck your shit up. And then as for Alphard herself, Alphard is, again, one of the child soldiers that Siam trains. But also for the longest time, Alphard is also given the name of Canaan. So it kind of becomes this whole ordeal between Alphard and Canaan, where they share the same name, they share the same tattoo on their arm as Siam, and the relationships that they had with Siam each are different. And Alphard ends up killing Siam prior to the start of the show. So, voicing these characters. As Liang Chi, we have Jessica Boone, who has voiced characters such as Chiyo Mihama in Azumanga Daioh, Rei Miyamoto in High School of the Dead, and Rue, aka Princess Kurehi in Princess Tutu.
I specifically had to pull up the fucking Chiyo one.
I've never seen Azumanga Daioh, but then she showed me the picture, I'm like, oh, that character.
I was like, she plays a psycho lesbian.
Mm-hmm. It's great. As for Alphard, we have Leslie Peterson, who's voiced characters such as Lorenza. She actually doesn't have a ton of credits, honestly. She's voiced Lorenza Felicini in Chevalier Dayon, Hibiki Watanuki in Panty Pony Dash, and Paula Sinclair in Red Garden.
This is coming out after Pony Pony Dash, right?
What, the show?
Oh no, we have not recorded a Pony Pony Dash
We've
episode.
never done Panty Pony Dash, no.
I'm pretty sure that if we did a Pony Pony Dash episode, Noah has, like, actually fallen into Rune. And he would need, like, psychological help. Because from what I understand, Noah fucking hates that show.
That's what I've heard too.
Like a level of hatred that makes me jealous that I can't be that much of a hater.
That's great.
Like, legitimately, I wish I could hate a show that hard. But anyway.
Alright, so, do we talk about Crazy Lesbian?
Oh, fuck yeah, absolutely. We're 100% talking about,
Jessica Boone is my favorite performance in the show, bar none.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's really weird because the other thing that, like, I really always will associate Jessica Boone with is that she's the lead character in Angelic Layer.
Yep. Which,
if you don't know, is one of my favorite shows of all time. Like, it's one of my favorite, like, nostalgic anime. So her getting to do this, and she is an absolute wackadoo.
Liang Chi is a fucking wackadoodle-doo, man.
Like, she is levels of concern, but also, we also always give a shout out for Toxic Yuri.
Yep.
And she is very toxic.
Oh, she's yandere levels of toxic, bro.
Like, I gotta really talk about it. Her gleefully gloating that she killed Hako. Is, like, up there as, like, one of the most go fuck yourself moments in the whole show.
Yeah, one of the moments where she's just like, yeah, Hako, I made you kill your boyfriend.
But we're here to talk about the actual best moment of her performance in the entire show. And that is when she gets so jealous of Alphard.
Alphard and Canaan.
And
yep.
Alphard and Canaan. That she will never measure up to Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
And that Cummings has betrayed her, even though Cummings loves her, because Cummings wants her to stop. So Lanky just inhales the Uavirus pills, and her hair, and she of course cannot handle the uber levels of her Canan's synesthesia. And she proceeds to start, like, bleeding out her eyes, her hair goes white, and she is screaming and crying for Alphard, and then she sees herself in the mirror.
And she mistakes herself as Canaan.
For Canaan. And she begs and says, Cummings, I will love you if you do the one thing for me, and that is to kill Canaan. She's right there. And of course, Cummings shoots her, and it's her who's dying.
Yep.
And I think that it's kind of the most symbolic moment in this story, that the idea that revenge will consume you. If you hate and revenge something so much, it will consume you until you become the thing that you hate.
Yeah.
And just Jessica's performance is just so good in that moment, and it's, like, probably the best directed scene in the show, to be honest.
Honestly, yeah, because of how unhinged Jessica had to be in that moment. Like, it's ungodly levels of just, like, whoo.
Right?
I love it.
It's just so chilling.
Yeah. I feel like if I remember right, when I watched the show years ago, and I did a review on my blog when I first started out, I feel like I watched, I would have to look it up. I think this was still my favorite performance back then. It's still my favorite performance now because of how crazed Liang Chi can get and how unhinged this girl is, all because she wants her sister to love her and to look at her. Like, it's
like, it's all fun and games where we're, like, calling her a psycho lesbian, but deep down, she's a very tragic character.
100%. She's just super
and a lot
tragic.
of this show is the tragedies of all of these revenges.
Yeah. It really is. I'm trying to find it. Oh my god, yeah. So I was just like, is it still there? Canaan was the second show I ever reviewed on my blog. And I probably talked about... Yeah. Liang Chi was my favorite performance in both the Japanese and the English.
Oh, wow.
At the time. Yeah, because I watched both versions. With Liang Chi in Japanese being Rie Tanaka.
Oh, okay.
I was just curious. I'm like, I bet I remember. I feel like that was what I wrote. That's interesting. Anyway, sorry. Distractions.
It's okay.
But, no. Freaking, oh my god. Jessica was unhinged. Bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can see, as the show progressed, like, you can see her slowly devolving. You're right. It's very fitting that for her, it's very fitting that at the end she became the thing that she hated the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I like how they portrayed that and they proceeded with that as a fitting end for her character. I did enjoy that a lot. Do we want to talk about Alphard now, or?
Yeah, Alphard is really weird because I felt that sometimes her direction was really good, and then at other times it was just kind of bland.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those ones where this is, for me, it's kind of middle of the road for Leslie.
Yeah.
Because you're right, there are very strong moments for Leslie as Alphard. But like obviously the last couple of episodes where she's fighting Canaan on the train are a nice high point for her. I feel like some of the stuff at the factory was a good point, especially with the stuff with Liang Chi. And then there are other moments that are a lot quieter, and some of those moments at the same time end up being a bit more stiff and stilted.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, to be honest. But, like, I wanted to really like Leslie's performance. I really did. I think at the end of the day, at least for me, it's more middle of the road. It's not the strongest of the show, but it's also not the weakest of the show.
Yeah.
I don't know how if that's a similar take that you're getting from it.
Yeah. It's and that's not what that character needs to be.
Yeah.
So,
she's in charge of a terrorist organization.
And she's got a bunch of stuff, too, and going on. Like, her feelings towards Canaan, her feelings towards the ghost of Siam.
Yeah.
Who's kind of, like, it's just very okay.
Yeah, it doesn't... I think it doesn't help that some of her feelings and thoughts on the ghost of Siam, they almost feel abrupt when it comes up at the end. And you don't necessarily see, like, you don't really get hints or little inklings of it throughout the course of the show up until this point. So it kind of makes it a bit more difficult for Leslie to really kind of, like, delve and portray Alphard's character in a better light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue, is because some of the stuff with Alphard's story doesn't really come in towards till the end. So that doesn't give Leslie the opportunity to really, like, sink her teeth into it more.
Yeah, she just kind of just exists.
Right.
Alphard just exists, unfortunately.
Yeah, Alphard is an okay antagonist. Liang Chi, I feel like, is a better antagonist at points than Alphard is. Which is a shame, because I do like Alphard as a character. I just wish there was, like, if Alphard was better written.
Yeah.
And then if Leslie was better directed, I feel like it would have been a hell of a lot better performance for Leslie overall.
Yeah, and the other thing is, too, is that it's very clear that Alphard is the character that was fairly large in the video game, too.
Yeah.
Because she's the villain, and she was the quote-unquote Canaan from there. The real Canaan doesn't come in until post-game.
Right.
But it's like, we as a viewer don't have... And this is something that I can love against a lot of visual novel-based anime. Is that it's... In a lot of senses, it's unfair to make a person play a game and then watch an anime on it, especially as a blind person. Like, blind to the material.
Right.
Or with no knowledge. And it's like, hey, like, this character still needs to be written in a way that's competent and easy to understand, and some visual novel anime do it better than others.
Right.
I think the worst thing in this case is that the visual novel that Canaan's based off of didn't come to the States until 2018.
Yeah, and this show came to the States almost immediately after, because it was licensed almost immediately.
Yeah.
By Sentai at that time in like the early 2010s. So there's a disconnect between the two, and for Japanese viewers and knowers of the visual novel, it's probably a good or a decent successor to the visual novel, but for
dependingly how you feel about having a character that isn't literally a post-game thing become your main character, but
right. But compared to us here in the West, where again, we've never had the visual novel for years, but we've had this anime for longer than the game has been available to us. It's very interesting. You know, it's always both interesting and sometimes frustrating with licenses and adaptations, because like, you're right, like if the visual novel was available from either the start or before Canaan was released, or subsequently, like if they adapted Shibuya Scramble as like in a different medium besides a visual novel before Canaan, and then that came over to the West, you know what I mean? Like, Canaan would have not only made at least a little bit more sense, but I feel like it would have been able to be understood a lot better.
Yeah, and I think that also
audience
might have hindered the directing.
Yeah.
Like, granted, I know this is going to sound harsh. It's also hard to be, like, I think it's not hard to be a little biased against Stephen Foster.
Let's be real, it's very easy to be biased against him.
Because,
let's not sugarcoat that.
Yeah, because there are dubs that he's done that are very well liked and very well loved that aren't ghost stories.
Yes. Yes.
But at the same time, this is also a man who took arguably probably one of the 2010's best animes and gave it one of the worst dubs I think out there.
Penguin Drum, right?
It's Penguin Drum.
Yeah.
So much so that I, on Recommend or Die with Jet, I had to get back to it because unfortunately I was having some tech issues with it, that I'm watching it subtitled.
Yeah,
Despite the cast.
I've never watched the dub. I've watched the Japanese, though.
Which is saying a lot considering that there's a lot of really talented people in that dub.
Yeah, which is a shame, honestly.
So I think in this case, it's a bit of a two-way street to why I think that the performance that Leslie gives is so very, like,
Yeah.
In a sense, because it's did Steven care about this? Did Steven care to look into the material for her? What was the directing? It just the show itself. So, like, again, not bad, but very just there, which is kind of unacceptable for, like, a major villain, especially when Jessica was doing really well.
No, 100%. Like, I mean, even like, while I understand that Jessica got to do very well because of Liang Chi's character being as unhinged as she is, between the two of them, Alphard has the more complex story as a villain. And that's something I feel like it might not have been written very well in the anime itself, but that's also given the understanding that you kind of need some of the context from the visual novel to put the pieces together for Alphard. So it's very difficult. And I really I like what Leslie did with the role. I do like what she did. It's not, again, it's middle of the road for me. But at the same time, it's like, if more was given to Leslie to get more contextual-wise, direction-wise, the whole 9 yards, I feel like it would have given Leslie a lot more to work with and a better performance for Alphard overall. Maria is a character in the visual novel. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't know that.
Yes, I'm actually going to show you something really funny when we get to the next section.
Okay. Speaking of, is there anything else we want to talk about with Alphard and Liang Ji, or we want to? Okay, cool. Let's move on to our final characters. We have our two lead characters. We have the titular character Canaan. She is an assassin for hire, just chilling in Shanghai on some missions and shit. And she gets roped into stuff because, it's Canaan and she's part of this whole shenanigans with Alphard and magically the Ghost Village and the factory and all this fun stuff. And Canaan also has these heightened powers of synesthesia to help her with combat. And then we have Maria Osawa. Maria Osawa is a photographer, journalist. She comes to Shanghai with Minoru Minokawa as part of a assignment from a gossip mag. But she gets roped into a bunch of shit. And she is pertinent to the story from the visual novel because prior to the start of this series, she is kidnapped. There's this whole deal with the Uwa virus being released in Shibuya. But Maria is given the antidote. So, by her dad. So, there's a lot more with Maria going on.
Who almost gets blown up by a car bomb in this series.
Yeah, Maria gets into a lot of shit half the time. But she is seen primarily as Canaan's light throughout the whole course of the show.
She's not my light, she's my best friend. Okay, girl, you're gay.
Okay, you gay. We're friends. Friends hold hands. No, friends, you gay. No, girls, you gay. You lesbians. Anyway. So, voicing Maria Osawa, we have Hilary Hagg, who is voiced characters such as Riku Haruda in The Angel, Talitha Testarossa in Fullmetal Panic, and Megami Shitao in Razafon. And as for our titular character Canaan, we have Shelley Colleen Black, who is voiced characters like Liza and the narrator in Made in Abyss, Kanata Totokubara in Chivalry of a Failed Knight, and Rutail in Land of the Lustrous.
Okay, so I posted a picture in the chat of what Maria looks like in the anime. Do you want to see what she looked like in the game?
Sure. I want to see what she looks like. Because the game is primarily
nothing like that.
I'm about to say the game primarily is like actual live action visual novel. From my understanding.
Yes. But they very much type moonified everybody.
Yep. They sure fucking did.
I gotta show you Canaan because I actually think that live action Canaan's a lot cooler looking than anime Canaan.
Really?
Oh yeah, she's so much fucking cooler looking.
I love it. Oh damn.
Yeah, I told you she's so much fucking cooler looking. Yeah.
That's Canaan, not Alphard, but Canaan.
Canaan. Yeah, I told you she was cool. Told you she was fucking cooler.
Interesting.
So I'll start with Hilary. I think Hilary does a really good job. This is very Hilary Hagg work.
Yeah.
I like a lot of Maria's performance. I don't think it's the best in the show. I do think that sometimes it verges on the line of being a little too screamy at points. But
so similar with Serena.
Yeah, but when it hits, it hits. Really sucks that my copy dropped her and Minoru's conversation in the hospital at the end. Go fuck yourself, copy.
Wow.
But if you wanted to play a game of this show that would kill you, take a shot every time Maria gets kidnapped. You'll die.
Yep.
You will feel like you have two appendixes.
Yep.
So, I like a lot of Hilary's performance. I love that scene where they eat the sundaes, and she's like, "You're so awesome, Canaan," and it's totally a girl's date, but I guess Union eventually shows up, so, thanks to... way to cock block Union.
Way to appendix block Union. She has two of them. She can block each of them.
She has an appendix for at least two of Maria's 3 holes. Remember, kids, if the ass in the kitty is blocked, you've got a mouth. But I genuinely enjoyed Hilary's performance. I like Shelley Colleen Black as Canaan. I think Shelley Colleen Black is a criminally underrated actress.
Oh, 100%.
The downside is that Canaan doesn't yell and speak up. And in an atrociously mixed copy that I have, I can't hold it against her, but it was very hard to hear her.
Yep.
And I like the Canaan at the end who's eating the candy and, like, a lot more alive because she's realized that she can't cling on to Alphard's ghost. Not Alphard. Onto Siam's ghost, and that she can live a life without holding on to a light to depend on.
Yep.
Also, can we please talk about how Alphard just shoots her goddamn arm off?
We forgot about that part. And somehow miraculously lives.
And yeah, despite all the blood loss.
Yeah.
But, like, the show, artistic license medical. But I liked Shelley a lot. I like them as characters. I don't necessarily think they're the best performances in the show, but they're perfectly serviceable to me.
No, yeah. I feel like I can agree with that. Like, I feel Hillary as Maria has this fun, spunky energy with a dash of naivete, because for a good amount of the show, one of the poignant moments or poignant things with Maria is that she hates the fact that she relies on Canaan so much. And she wants to be able to stand by her as an equal. And that's one of the big things for Maria's character throughout the whole course of the show. So, having that as an interesting, like, character moment for Hillary, I think she portrays that very, very well. Hillary also gets to have some of the higher energy moments, like, definitely like you said when we were talking about Union earlier, but for a different reason. It's not for a comedic effect, it's more of this
personality,
the personality, and more of a joyful energy to her, to help and especially to balance out Canaan, because Canaan as a character is much more stoic. She has more of a stoicism. She can be somber at times, but because Maria, for the most part of the show, is seen as Canaan's light, she has this bubbly, fun personality that is able to bring out Canaan as more of a human being rather than this assassin and this killing machine, if that makes sense. And I think Hillary was great and portrayed that very well. It's also not one of my strongest performances in the show. And then Shelley Colleen Black, I do like Shelley Colleen Black's Canaan. It unfortunately had the problem of the hushed performance with the bad mixing situation, so there are points where I couldn't really clearly hear her in moments.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the characters, I think Canaan, Alphard, Minoru was one, Santana, Hako, Yuri, a good amount of the characters who are more soft-spoken and serious in tone, that's where it hurt. And with Canaan being the lead as she is, that hurt a lot. I also feel like Shelley is also very underutilized actress, to be honest with you. This is one of the few times where she actually had a lead role in something. And she does rather well with Canaan, given the circumstances, and also given Canaan as a character. There are moments where I feel like some of the direction could have been a bit better. Because there are some moments, they're very few, but there are some moments where some of the performance can be kind of stilted for Shelley. But I think it's more of a fault. I think it's a mix of a fault of the direction and Canaan as a character herself, not necessarily Shelley's performance. But I don't, what am I fucking trying to say? I think the dynamic between Shelley and Hillary is solid. It's another solid pairing, I feel like, similar to Santana and Hako, but I feel like Santana and Hako is the stronger pair compared to Canaan and Maria. But as a lead role, and as the lead of the show and needing to carry it throughout the course of the show, I think Shelley does a good job. Again, I think what a lot of it for her comes down to is how Canaan as a character is written in the show, period. And then I think some of the direction might have left some moments like stiff and stilted for her. But overall, I feel like she did a pretty decent job, all things considered.
Got ya. Yeah, I agree. It's just, again, I had an atrociously mixed copy, so.
Oh yeah, both of our copies are fucked. That's really what it comes down to. Both of our copies were fucked, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating that that's the case. Is there anything else we wanted to talk about with Canaan and Maria, or do you want to move to final thoughts? Okay,
I'm ready to move to final thoughts. Like I said, I'll get into this in the final thoughts. Okay. I don't feel mad that I watched this show. I feel like I didn't waste my time. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I had a good time with it. Do I think I'm gonna remember this in like a year? Fuck no.
No, yeah.
Unfortunately, the biggest hindrance to this dub is atrocious post-production.
Yep.
It's not the fault, like, I can't blame any actor or Stephen Foster or even the mixing team for this. It's a completely a QC fail and a back-end fail. Mm-hmm. And it is very frustrating that when you talk about a dub, you do have to consider that. Even in dubs that I like, there are things that an actor doesn't control or a writer doesn't control that I will nitpick. Very famously, like, I'll give you an example. I really like the dub of G-Witch. I think the dub of Witch from Mercury is fairly good. I'm still not happy that they didn't go the distance for inclusive casting. There's another show this year that I had a similar complaints to, which is I can understand if that particular actor does a really good job in the performance, but where other due diligence do. And unfortunately, that also happens in sound mixing. I know a show that I'm going to be covering coming up, on the release that I have, there is missing audio on it. And I will have to knock that against it because it's a production issue. Mm-hmm. And as much as that doesn't sound fair, unfortunately, it impacts your watching of it.
Yeah.
If I can't hear the dialogue in a fairly dialogue-intensive show, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I think while the actors did a really good job, and surprisingly, Stephen Foster didn't foster the fuck out of this.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna say it's memorable because, frankly, like, you've watched this multiple times and you barely remember what the hell happened.
Yeah. Again, the last time I watched this was over a decade ago, to be fair, but still.
Like, as much as, like, we joke about the filler episode shows, like, I think we've done, like, Bungo and Alchemist. I think we did Maria the Virgin Witches one. Yeah. Like, I still vividly remember parts of those shows.
No, yeah, 100%.
And I vividly remember a lot of performances out of them. Mm-hmm. I don't think I will for this. And that kind of sucks for the show. And part of it, yes, is the show itself. Like, it's a very weird adaptation of a visual novel that is well regarded in Japan, but not as much over here.
Right.
And frankly, I don't think a lot of people in our circle of friends knew what the fuck this visual novel was until we talked about this.
No, yeah, like, I didn't even know that the visual novel really existed until you mentioned it. I'm like, oh shit, you're right. Because I made the mistake, I thought you were talking about the light novel and the manga that came out after the anime adaptation. I'm like, wait, that's not right. And then I looked at it again, I'm like, oh no, there's an actual visual novel that this is kind of based off of.
Yeah, so that's all I gotta say.
Yeah. My final thoughts. So, this one's a little frustrating, I guess, to talk about. Mm-hmm. More so because of some of the QC issues that you and I ran into when watching this show, period. Because this is one of those cases where it's like, how, for what fucking reason, and how did these get missed on the early onset? And how did these not get fixed in the over 10 years that this has been released? You know what I mean? And it's very, very frustrating. But the show itself is confusing as shit. And again, all of the things that we had talked about with lack of context, because this is a show that you would kind of need the story of the visual novel to understand a bit more, and how it gets frustrating from like a Western audience standpoint when we didn't have that opportunity for years. Like, I wish I had the visual novel when I first saw this show, because then I would have gotten a lot more context. The dub itself, I think it's serviceable. The performances are decent. The directing, again, weirdly enough, Stephen Foster didn't foster the fuck out of this, so it's fine. The writing is fine. The writing is pretty straightforward. I think it could have dialed back the swearing just a touch, but it didn't need to do too much, given what this show is and the story itself. I feel like this is a middle-of-the-road kind of show. It is okay. It's something that I feel like you don't have to actively seek out to go and watch. But here's what I'm gonna say. If you are buying anime from like a Sentai sale or a Crunchyroll sale, and you need a cart topper just to get yourself the free shipping, go ahead and get this show. It's one of those. It's one of those. Like, I feel like it's a show that I would like to see more people know about and watch. 100%, honestly. Because, especially back then when I first watched it, I actually really liked the show a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that I vaguely remember. So much so that I was like, hey, I wonder how possible it would be for me to cosplay as Canaan. That's how much I did like the show.
Yeah.
Like, you are going to get enjoyment out of it. It's just a shame that the QC issues do hinder the home video release. But again, I feel like it's one of those shows where, like, if there's a fun sale on like Sentai or not Right Stuff, Crunchyroll or anything like that, and this happens to be on sale too, do it as a cart topper to get yourself free shipping. Because usually when it's on sale, it's like normally like $15, $20.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not bad. So, with that being said, if you do want to watch the series Canaan and the English dub for yourself, unfortunately, the only way to do so is through the home video release. As previously mentioned, this show was removed from streaming. So this is not available on High Dive. It's not available on Hulu. It's not available anywhere for streaming in North America. So your only option is to buy the home video release, and I do apologize for that. But again, I would see it as like a cart topper, essentially. It's not horrible. It's not amazing. It's fine.
It's one of those shows that just like, hey, I watched this. I thought it was pretty cool. You should maybe watch it too.
Yeah. If you are interested in the visual novel, though, 428 Shibuya Scramble, it is available on Steam, and I do have it on my wish list because I do want to play that.
Yeah, I believe it's on like Steam, PS4. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can buy it on the PlayStation Store. Yep. It's on PS4.
It looks like it might be on Android as well, according to Wiki. According to Wikipedia, it is. Android and iOS, it looks like. It looks like it was on Wii, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Portable, iOS, Android, PS4, and there's a PC version, which would be where Steam comes in.
I think it had... Yeah, unfortunately, it is a little bit older.
Yeah, so,
it's probably more available digitally now than anything.
So, so outside of Japan, it is available... through PlayStation 4 and PC. Those are the only two options. The Android and iOS ones and stuff like that, that's all Japan.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Like, if you want to try and check out the visual novel this is based off of, that is at least accessible. I haven't played it yet, and I know Megan hasn't played it yet, but I am going to recommend you potentially play the game first before you go after the show if possible. Because I feel like that it's going to give you a lot more context into Canaan itself. But with that being said, I forgot to pull up the patron list. Oopsie. I don't even know.
I'll show myself while you're doing it. So if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Queener2. I'm probably on Blue Sky into that, and I hang out on the Crunchyroll Discord and the Anime Dubs Discord.
This is up to date. This isn't even up to date. Shit.
Just go to Patreon itself.
That's what I'm doing. Keep talking, bitch. Anyway, my name is Stephanie, also known as Tired as Fuck. Side note, I've just recorded an episode while coming off of COVID for the third fucking time. It's great.
I'm recording an episode a week into being on nasal sprays, which is not fun.
Oh god, I hate everything. Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter. On Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, Twitch, all at Lilac Anime Review, with review being spelled REVUE. I do want to try and start doing personal streams on my Twitch channel, hopefully by the time my birthday is the plan. But slowly but surely that plan's coming together. If you want to follow anything that Dub Talk does, now that I've pulled up all of the stuff, if you want to follow anything that Dub Talk does, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Tumblr's Dead, Twitch, all at Dub Talk Podcast. If you want to support us in a completely different capacity, you can also follow us on, you can also do one-time donations with our Ko-fi account, and then we also have our Patreon account. Both are at Dub Talk Podcast. The Patreon account, if you would like to support us in a larger capacity and get little sneak peeks and early access to episodes, including these lovely folks. In our $5 tier, we have Bright Eyes 505, thanks Beth, Quinoa Soup, Marissa Lenti, Megan's Mom and Dad, and Michelle Travis. And in our $10 tier, we have Anthony Brown, Carly Lesticow, Crimson Echidna, Julia W, Pika Greg, and Otaku Anthony. Thank you all so much for your continued support. And then, if you...
I have fear knowing that Greg is in the $10 tier.
I have fear too. But anyway, and then if you want to continue chilling with us and catching new episodes from us on the regular, you can subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. That's where the video versions of these podcasts go up. And we also have the audio versions of the podcast available on Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. I think that's it. My brain is full of fuck. My brain is currently full of fuck.
Oh no, do you two have two appendixes?
I guess so.
Remember kids, pee is stored in the balls.
And with that being said, I don't even know. Let's try and not wait 2 years before we do another episode with you and I.
Definitely, we'll probably be doing one in like 2 months.
On that note, thank you guys so much for hanging out and joining us. Until next time, otaku on, my friends.
Shinya is now staring at me like, what the fuck are you doing?
Mother, I crave violence.